from shadow, sealed in truth, ancient blood, but faith rooted proof. History whispers, legends pretend. She chose the light where darkness ends. Eyes that see what most can't find. Gift of foresight, disciplined mind. Cross held steady, heart on guard. Truth cuts clean when nights get hard. She reads the silence, feels the room. Past and present start to bloom. Fear don't live where faith stands firm. Another veil about to burn. Welcome to the deeper dimension, where darkness meets divine intervention. Royal blood, but heaven sent. She don't flinch at what's being mentioned. From cold cases to restless minds, she pulls the truth from broken time. Grace and steel, intuition. Step inside the deeper dimension. Duchess title.
All right, hello.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Can everybody hear me? I'm quite excited. We have a second part of this show. We are very thankful to have a wonderful Emmy Award researcher, producer, and author Tim Swartz with us. He did a lot of study, played a part on Ancient Aliens. We have a new book that we're going to talk about, and I'm sure many of you would be interested to read it, and he will tell us more about it. So, Donnie, welcome back. I'm so happy to have you here. As usual, we have Mr. Paul Del Roberts, the Demon Warrior. Welcome aboard, sir. And
Thank you.
everybody, please join us if you have a question for our guest. I think it's going to be amazing show. Let's start, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard.
All right. Should I start it off there, Danielle?
Sure, whatever you want, Paul. I'll pass my torch to
for
you,
it.
sir.
All right. Tim, this book is amazing. It has so much stuff. It's a good Bible for ghost hunters, especially ghost hunters who are learning to be ghost hunters. It's just filled with stuff. There's a section in there where you're talking about, is a poltergeist a ghost? Can you kind of elaborate on that?
Sure. Well, Ed, excuse the headphones. I'm going old school tonight.
Oh, that's okay.
Just before we get ready to sign on, my video camera decided to. It's separate from my computer. It decided to take a plunge, and the lens just completely popped off, and I couldn't find it. So I'm having to go on an old laptop here that I just have to have. So yeah, we're off to a great start today. It's the poltergeist ball. I swear it is. It's the poltergeist. It's poltergeist have always been, a major role player when it comes to a ghost and hauntings. But there's always been this suspicion that there's something different about the poltergeist, as opposed to say like a regular, just your common everyday type of haunting that we all go through.
Vanilla ghost.
Yeah, that's right. But the thing about the poltergeist is that it usually arises in a situation where a family hasn't really had any type of ghost or hauntings in their house. It just seems kind of to pop out of nowhere, and there always seems to be at least one particular person that the poltergeist is centered around. whether it picks on that person particularly, or it spares them from its wrath. But which has led a lot of parapsychologists to wonder whether or not a poltergeist isn't a ghost in a traditional sense, but instead is some kind of telekinetic outburst from a person, and a lot of times it's usually the suspicion falls on a either a teenage girl or teenage boy or somebody in the household who may be having emotional problems, and a lot of these cases there's always seems to be like a young person in the house that seems to be the center of activity. And it's gone back and forth over the years, whether or not it is a ghost or a spirit of some kind, or just just the human element going on. Now, in the book, I've got a big section from the late Paul Eno, because it was he developed the hypothesis over the years that poltergeists are primarily parasites from an alternate reality that exists alongside of our own, but they are able to access ours in order to come and have a buffet off of our energies, and they seem to be particularly interested in generating fear response or anger. Fear seems to be the big one, but anger will work too, and that they are able to feed off of this energy. Now, one of the reasons that Paul felt this way was because of one of his early cases that involved a family and a young girl that was experiencing all kinds of just terrible poltergeist activity, lots of floating furniture and televisions being knocked over and destroyed. And this wasn't a rich family, so the television getting busted up, that that was a big problem. But one evening while he was visiting this family, and they saw coming down the hallway towards this girl several kind of wispy entities that were coming into the living room and directly towards this girl. And Paul stood in between her and them and actually reached out to push them away. But he said that he actually pushed against something. He said that it felt like to him that it was it had substance to it, but it felt almost like there were bones inside. But he said that they seemed to be thin and lightweight, almost like a bird's bones. That was the impression that he got from it. But these things were able to get around him and proceeded to push the girl down onto the floor. And then after that, everything, just kind of erupted. People were yelling and screaming, and they disappeared. So in his subsequent investigations, he had other cases, and it just seemed to strengthen his idea that these weren't ghosts in the traditional sense, but instead, otherworldly entities that, however you'd want to define them. Now, the very religious would call them demons, but I don't like to go in that direction, because poltergeists tend to start doing what you think that they're going to do, or what you speak out loud that they're going to do, possibly to elicit that fear response that he was talking about. And I've noticed this myself. If you're in a house where there's poltergeist activity, and say you're sitting around talking, and somebody says that poltergeists are well known for tearing up family photos, and sure enough, the next day family photos start getting torn up. Same thing goes if you're talking out loud and saying, well, these are demons. Well, the next day, if you have crosses on the wall, they're hung upside down, your Bibles disappear or set on fire. It seems that, whatever it is that you say that you think these things are, they're more than happy to play that role. And again, it kind of falls into Paul Eno's ideas that they are trying to elicit strong emotions, if they're able to feed off of the strong emotions. And I've said this before also, that if you bring, say, like a priest or other kind of religious figure into a house that has a poltergeist to try to exorcise it, it usually doesn't do any good, and in fact, it seems to exasperate the situation. And Paul's idea was that don't do that. Instead, take away its food source. Instead of getting scared or angry, sit around and tell jokes. Now that may sound weird, but it lightens the atmosphere, and it takes away that energy that these things seem to feed on. Now, in our book, The Persistence of Ghost, I suggest that it could also be, because face it, when it comes to paranormal activity, there are all kinds of possible explanations, and I don't think that there are any one that is that are definitive. I think that there are all kinds of different things at play. But I suggest that in a lot of cases, a poltergeist is kind of a combination of a person's internal conflicts being let loose through telekinesis or psychokinesis, whatever you have it, and the possibility that there is a split in a person's personality, sort of along the lines of multiple personalities, that one of these personalities actually kind of takes on a life of its own and does the things, it's kind of Freudian here, but it kind of does the things that the person is wanting to do secretly but can't. And as well, there could very well be, discarnate entities, like Paul has suggested, coming around, adding their 2 cents worth as well. That's why it's so important to go into these investigations without a mindset, without a belief system, because you're going to be presented with all kinds of different scenarios. And if you go in convinced that you're dealing strictly with ghosts or strictly with parasites or strictly with demons, then the phenomena tends to mold itself to meet your expectations. So that's why you have to approach every different situation, every investigation with a fresh, clear mind, and leave your beliefs at home. That's kind of a roundabout way of going about to answer your question there, Paul.
and Tim, that's so interesting because I've been on like 2,500 investigations. I've been on a lot. And there's a lot of cases where they say it was a poltergeist. Well, I didn't find no evidence of that except for 2. And one that really pops in my head is, I call it the penny throwing poltergeist. And my team went in there, and these pennies came out of nowhere and would just drop on the floor. I said, what the hell is going on here? I said, okay, everybody, including the occupants, a man and a woman. I said, get over here in the circle. I said, everybody put their hands up, okay, where I can see it. And we got our hands up, and I said, okay, if there's anything out there, throw another penny at me. And sure enough, here comes a penny. I go, what the? I can't say the word. But my mind was totally blown. And so I said, okay, let's do it again. Put your hands up. Hands up again. And sure enough, another penny comes. I go, I look at the occupant, I go, how are you doing that? And he goes, I'm not doing it. That's what I'm trying to tell you. There's a poltergeist in here. Come to find out also, too, he had a 13-year-old boy.
Oh.
And the 13-year-old boy wasn't there that night. But that 13-year-old boy, we kind of started thinking that we had a parapsychologist with us, and he was kind of thinking that this 13-year-old boy was exerting some type of energy into that home, causing those pennies to fall. And that was one case. The second case, this family said they had a poltergeist, and I've heard that many times, and never finding really evidence of a poltergeist except for the penny thing. But we went into this house, and when their daughter is in the house, the ceiling fan moves and it's turned off.
Wow.
And okay, so it's moving. I go, okay, maybe you're having some kind of electrical problem here. But then I said, okay, let's take the daughter to the neighbor's house. And let's see if the thing will stop. And sure enough, we took the daughter over there, and the ceiling fan slowly turned off. When she came back into the house, the ceiling fan started again. So, and they had a lot of objects that would move or disappear, blah blah blah. And and the daughter was 12 years old. So again, maybe exerting energy. It was a really strange case. And I did they had me do a house blessing, but that didn't work. And usually my house blessings work. So it wasn't like a common ghost. There was something else projecting that energy.
Yeah, one of the most remarkable cases that I personally witnessed was a situation where this older couple had to start taking care of their two grandchildren because both of these kids' parents were in jail, and the girl was around 12, the boy was around 9, and they weren't very happy. I mean, they loved their grandparents naturally, but they were taken away from their home and had, having to live someplace else. And they started experiencing in this house some poltergeist activity. Nothing, really horrible, but just a lot of your traditional stuff. Raps on the wall, knocks on the door, furniture moving around a little bit. But when I was there, I was sitting in the living room talking to the two grandparents, and I could see down the hallway. It was just like a small ranch home out in the country, and it had a hallway that led from the living room where the bedrooms were, and the kids' room was right at the end of the hallway, and the door was open, and I could see them very clearly sitting on the bed playing a board game, both of them. And then the grandparents were to my right. And all of a sudden, there was this loud bang, and the house kind of shook, almost like a sonic boom. And the woman of the household, she looked at me and she's like, "Oh, it's going to start." And I was like, "Okay." And then all of a sudden, from the ceiling right in front of me, we watched small rocks fall down from the ceiling. Wow. And it looked like, and it was just a plain ceiling. There was no, because a lot of houses, like maybe have a ceiling light, but there wasn't anything like that. There, no holes, no nothing. But these rocks would appear just below the ceiling and then drop to the floor. They'd appear and then drop to the floor. Maybe about 5 of them appeared. So at this point, I picked them up, and they didn't feel warm or cold or anything like that, because a lot of times with apports, things that mysteriously appear like that, a lot of times they appear to be rather warm, but these weren't. So I got the bright idea to mark these rocks. I marked them with a big X with a magic marker or Sharpie. and then took them to the back door of the house. And there was a cornfield right behind their house. And this would have been around August, so the corn was rather high. And I chucked one by one every one of these rocks out into that cornfield, sat down, and once again, rocks started falling from the ceiling. It was the very same rocks that I had chucked into the cornfield. Each one
Tim,
of them with an X appeared.
Tim, is that the invisible stone throwers in the book?
I there is a chapter, there is a section called the Invisible Stone Throwers, but I left my story, out because a lot of times, if you include an experience, I did have some of my experiences in this book, but a lot of times if you include experiences like this in the book, some people will be like, yeah, you're just making this up for the book. But I've told this story before, on other shows and on, when I've given lectures. The invisible stone throwers, when this happens for a household, it's almost unrelenting. It doesn't stop. It'll go on for days, weeks, and just, rocks falling, usually on the outside, hitting the roof and windows, Uh, uh, this was just a one time, or actually it was for us it was a two-time experience. But then after they fell the second time, that was it. Nothing else ever happened for the rest of the evening. And the interesting thing is that afterwards these people told me that the activity pretty much stopped from that point on. There was a couple of things that happened, but it seemed like that it had used up all of its energy, and then that was it. It stopped after a while. Now there's a lot of people that they're not quite as lucky, and the poltergeist activity will actually accelerate. And the more occurrences like this, the more energy it seems to draw, to the point where it almost seems to get out of control, where you have the entities actually speaking. They develop a voice. So that's one of the very high end aspects of some poltergeist cases. But most of the ones are kind of like the one that I investigated. There's some minor activity, but it tends to peter out after a while. Sometimes it'll come back again, but it's very rare. It does happen, but it's very rare where the situation accelerates and gets exasperated, so to speak, to the point where it can be almost dangerous.
Wow.
And Tim is so interesting too, because when
is it okay if I can ask one question, Paul?
Oh yeah. Go ahead, Daniel. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Daniel. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We're all excited to have you, Tim, here. But I have a couple people sending me the messages to the Instagram, and myself, I was wondering about this. So, in your new book, a lot of times, especially now, people do play with magic, even if they don't know what is it. They enjoy this ancient craft, thinking, I can get this, I can get that, till somebody doesn't get hurt, or really they don't call something from the other side or other dimension, like you say, that they don't know how to return back. So I was wondering if you can tell us this in your new book, or if in your any experiences you did meet with curses or calling upon divine power to send or harm human being, place, or territory. Like, did you ever experience that? And did you face cases like that? What did you find out?
Well, I've never experienced anything like that, and really none of my cases that I have investigated were like that. Now, I will say that for some people that I would go and talk to and look at what they were going on, they may have been afraid that they were dealing with, like evil spirits or demons and things like that. And, and that's one of the first things that, I would do was assure them that more than likely that's not the situation. And that, you have to look at it in complete, and sometimes I would maybe, like hedge the truth a little bit of what I was, telling them. Like, no, there's never been cases, mostly just, and we know that's not true. But a lot of times I would say that to somebody who were getting panicky. And when that happens, then whatever is going on will feed off of that, and kind of double down, so to speak, to I don't know, to magnify that fear, or just to mess with people. That's the thing about hauntings. A lot of times is that it seems like that you are dealing with a very almost childlike personality.
Yes.
And the way I put it in the book, that you could be dealing with a fragmented mind, a mind that is not complete anymore, where the majority of the personality has gone on to the afterlife or the great reward or whatever you want to call it, and has left behind kind of like the baser types of a person's personality, the parts of us that develop in order to live in the material world. All right, that's what a lot of these older cultures believe, that um, you have a you have the penultimate soul, that is the consciousness from the universe, and that when you pass on, that's what leaves, that's what goes on to the afterlife. But you also have other parts of your consciousness that were meant to deal with living in the material world, living in a three-dimensional reality, that they don't go anywhere, they stay here and dissipate. They lose they go back. It's like they say, we came from dust, we'll return to dust.
Yes.
Parts of our consciousness seem to be that aspect, that obsessive part of us as well. One of the things that I noticed is the almost universal aspect of burial rituals, right? That a person has to be buried or taken care of properly, whatever your culture believes in. And if a person is not taken care of, if their physical remains are not taken care of in the way that their culture expects it to be, then that part of us that remains behind is obsessive along those lines, and returns to haunt the living, so to speak, and until their burial is proper. And that's just one of a number of different scenarios. Now, you asked Danielle about curses and the use of magical abilities. The whole spiritist movement that is popular, especially in Central and South America, their version of our spiritualism, they very much believe that poltergeist and disruptive spirits like that are these fragmented minds, these fragmented souls that can be enticed, so to speak, to do things with rewards, liquor, food, things like that. That's in voodoo and other types of processes like that. They make offerings, especially of like rum and food. And if somebody is wanting to put a curse on somebody, they will entice these spirits to do this by making an offering to them. So yes, I mean there is a cultural belief, not just with the spiritists, but all over the world, that you can bribe the spirits, so to speak, or certain kinds of spirits, not all of them. but you can bribe them by using these earthly pleasures that
Wow.
that these things readily respond to. And again,
Mhm.
this goes more towards my hypothesis that these are parts of us that remain behind. They're conscious to a certain extent, kind of like we're conscious when we dream. So you know how that is. They're unaware of the passage of time. They have base emotions. They're very childlike. If you notice, most ghosts and hauntings, seem to be cries for attention. Knocking on the walls, tugging at your clothes,
Yes.
messing with you, peering around corners and around doors at you. Now, you would think that if you are dealing with something that is invisible, immaterial, can walk through walls, why does it have to peer around corners at you? Why
Mhm.
does it, why does it have to, try to get your attention? It's because it's not all there. I'm trying to come up with, like, good words to use so as not to, insult people. But, you're dealing with minds that are very childlike, very base emotionally. And again, think about when you're dreaming and in the dream you're having a very emotional experience. That
Yeah.
emotion is so intense, it is so strong, it's overwhelming, whether it's love or fear or crying. Oh my gosh. I mean, I remember as a kid, when you would cry in a
Yes.
dream, it was so intense. I wonder whether or not that these entities are feeling those same kind of emotions, which is why haunting scenarios do tend to be so energetic, so powerful, and elicit all kinds of different responses from people. Now naturally, everybody is going to react, for the most part, with fear when it comes to these things. But these entities tend to also be able to, not only do they feel this way, but they can project those feelings onto the people of a household. All right. So, it's if it's it's kind of like there was a one of the early reality ghost hunting shows where a couple of the guys got spooked, and one of them went like, dude, run, and they ran like hell
That's
out
Ghost
of this
Adventures.
place. Yeah,
Yeah.
they got really scared and ran out. And everybody else, just really gave them a hard time because it's like, okay, look, you're ghost hunters and you got that kind of scared and ran out. What do you expect? You're ghost hunting. But I think that was kind of a little bit unfair because the environment in these places has a knack for generating those kinds of emotions into people. So yes, Danielle, you can use magic in order to to try to garner favors from these things.
Mhm.
I wouldn't advise it. I mean, and most magicians say, do not try to elicit the help from discarnate entities. You'll regret it. And I'll concur with that.
I hope before I pass the torch, I'll have one more question. Like you can see, I connect and welcome everybody. Grand Duke is in the house. We have Shelly, John Temperine. I have a couple people on Instagram. Yeah, Pops is here. Thank you very much always for helping us. Gemini, Castro. There's more than a couple people in here. Thank you guys. And I have Ivan here from Croatia. For him, like I say, if I'm not mistaken, my friend, 2:20 a.m. in Croatia. He
Hmm.
said, "Thank you. I love your show. And you guys are amazing. I have a one question, Daniel. Please, if you can translate, so I will translate. Can you ask this great gentleman, is it possible that monsters can be attached or live in a living beings, like even your family? So here we go, Ivan. We have Tim, and he will give you his professional answer.
So, do you mean like can somebody be possessed by these
He
things?
probably
Like,
thinks being possessed, like possessed and acting normally, but hurting family members. And
Mhm.
Ivan, if you're listening, and if I'm close, possession. Yes, he's saying possession. Is it possible to be possessed and still act normally like a family member, and then do evil things behind, or friends, or something like that?
a person can be sure. It can happen if you are sick, physically ill. It can happen to somebody who may be having emotional difficulties as well.
Mhm.
Definitely somebody who is a substance abuser, alcohol or drugs. From what I have been told, in these kind of scenarios, we your aura, that energy field that surrounds us all, part of what it does is that it prevents other things, entities, whatever you want to call them, from having a direct influence on us. Possession, you know. But if you are if you're going through these type of emotional difficulties, drug use, things like that,
Mhm, mhm.
then that causes your aura to be ragged and have spots where it's open, especially around the solar plexus. That is a place that can open easily if you're sick or undergoing
Mhm.
these problems, and these things can then obsess you from these points.
Oh.
Um, I suppose I have been told that if you are of a negative personality already, that another negative personality can find it easier to influence you. So if you're the type of person that you already like to hurt people or hurt animals or what have you, then you can have a negative entity that is very base uh, come in and kind of attach itself, like a parasite, like these things
Mhm.
said, like the oh, what are they called? Like the remores, I think is what they're called, that attach
Yes.
themselves to like sharks and fish. You can have these types of entities, and not all of them are human entities. I will emphasize this: there are entities, there are a lot of entities surrounding us that aren't human. All right, the our reality is full of them. Most of the time, they are unable to attach themselves to us and influence us. Uh, Sometimes they can, if you are so inclined to let that happen. And it's almost kind of like the old vampire stories where a vampire could not enter your house unless you invited them in. And it's that way with certain kinds of obsessions and possessions where you have to almost give permission to these things to allow them to attach themselves to you. And some people don't realize what they're doing. They get on to they start doing automatic writing or trying to do seances, expecting to call up their recently deceased grandma. And I always tell people, I says, it's very much akin to just picking up your phone and dialing a number at random and expecting that it's going to get to your grandmother. You
Hey
know,
Tim,
Mm.
I gotta say something. You're talking about vampires being
Thank
let
you.
in. You have to invite them in. Also, too, the black-eyed kids.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can I go in your house and use your phone? Yeah, it's like, hey, where's
I
your
know.
ice cream?
Oh
Yes.
no,
Yeah. Well,
that's a
see,
great explanation.
yeah, yeah. Well, see now, if you would tell the story about the black-eyed kids to say somebody who was raised in say China or Thailand or Malaysia, someplace like that, they would say that these things were hungry ghosts. That would be they're hungry ghosts.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right. We don't have those traditions here in the West, but we probably should because I think that the black-eyed kids are a really good example of hungry ghosts.
yeah.
And that you have to invite them in order for them to do. And the funny thing is that I really haven't heard any stories, nothing that I could really confirm of people actually throwing open their door and saying, "Yeah, come in, use my telephone, use the bathroom,
Come
eat
in.
the food from my refrigerator." Right,
You know,
right.
I had one case of the black-eyed kids. One case. Yeah.
And did they invite them in?
Wow.
No. Okay. Okay. So, oh, can I tell you this story real quick?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Please,
Okay.
let's listen. We are excited.
Okay. It was in downtown Sacramento, and this lady goes, "Oh my gosh!" She goes, "Please get over here. I just learned something about the black-eyed kids, and I'm being haunted by them." I go, "What?" She goes, "Yes, the black-eyed kids. Their eyes are pure black." So anyway, my team went over there, and we talked to her. And she says that these two kids came to the door with black eyes and wanting to use her phone. And she goes, "No." And then they go, "Well, I'm really thirsty. Can I get a glass of water? Can I come in and get a glass?" No, no, no. You cannot come in this house. You're freaking me out. She's saying in her head, "You're freaking me out. Your eyes are all black. No, you're not coming in." Anyway, she got so scared. They had went to the end of the driveway. She got in her car and she took off. As she's going down the road, she looks to her right and she's like 5 miles down the road, and there's the black-eyed kids. She goes, "What the hell? They were just at my house. There's no way they could be over here this quick." She's going down the road again, and she sees them again. Anyway, so she was totally freaked out, and now she's freaked out because her neighbors just moved in next door. It was an empty house, and at the house, they have two boys. And guess what? They look just like the black-eyed kids, except their eyes are normal. So that's the reason why she called us to try to tell us that those kids next door were the black-eyed kids, but their eyes were completely normal. She wanted me to go over and talk to her neighbor. I said, "I'm not going to talk to your neighbor. I mean, I'm not going to say accuse your neighbor of having kids who are the black-eyed kids." So anyway, I said, "I'll keep in touch with you to see if anything goes on." I called her like 2 weeks later. She says everything was normal. She wasn't being visited by the black-eyed kids, but that was my only case.
Yeah, I doubt that her neighbor's kids were the black-eyed
I
kids,
know, yeah.
but they have that chameleon type of ability to look like, you know, really, probably whatever they want to look like. Though the they do seem to favor that, kind of like young teenagers dressed rather, like with hoodies and dirty pants, and like like what our grandparents would call like ragamuffin type of of kids. But I think that we're dealing with some kind of non-human entities, not discarnate human spirits, but one of the many of different pantheons of spirits that that share this reality with us, and not everybody uh, has the ability to see or experience these things, which is probably a good thing. Most people, like the person that you dealt with would just totally freak out, which is part of what they're trying to do. They're trying to elicit a fear, and and I don't know. It's like we said. No, as far as I know, nobody has ever invited them in because almost immediately they get that gut feeling that something is wrong here, that these kids aren't normal. A lot of people, they get the feeling that they're in front of predators, that these things are going to kill them, eat them, whatever.
Oh,
And yeah, and that really that brings up that primal fear that most of us have never experienced before. So it's very interesting how these things can bring up that kind of fear response. Uh, some people who have had close encounters with UFO
Mhm.
entities also experience that same kind of primal fear. So,
Wow.
so again, it makes me wonder whether or not that certain aspects of UFO phenomena, it isn't also a paranormal type of experience, whatever a paranormal experience is. That's where we still struggle. That's what, why our research is so important to try to get a better grasp of what all this is and what it means, if there even is a meaning.
Wow. That's amazing story, gentlemen, on both sides. I heard, if I can pop one question, Paul, if you don't mind, regarding the black eyed kids, I can ask both of you. Many people are saying that these children will start appearing more and more in the basically last days. So if you're talking about like prophecies of Armageddon or of apocalypse, that these entities will be showing up more around people houses, including other monsters, like probably that you're mentioning inside of your book, and demons and other creatures. So I'm going to ask both of you, gentlemen, do you think, as the veil is thinning, that these creatures will be coming more in interaction with human beings or basically with us?
Tim,
Paul?
no.
Well, I start to say, Paul, why don't you go for it first?
um, the black eyed kids is this very strange phenomenon. It's almost like the Men in Black. So you don't really get that many stories. I mean,
Hmm.
I've been on so many investigations, and I only had one case of the black eyed kids. Well, maybe two, because there
Wow.
was a call I had in Michigan. Some guy claimed that he encountered the black eyed kids, but yeah, it's a very rare thing, and I don't think it's going to be a multitude of sightings of the black eyed kids. Um, for all I know, the black eyed kids could be almost a made up story. Just like with the lady that I investigated, I mean, she wanted me to go tell her neighbors that her kids are the black eyed kids, and they have normal looking eyes. I couldn't do that. And so, yeah, so I think it's a mental thing.
Yeah, if you look throughout history, you will find, maybe not necessarily black-eyed kids, but you will find, like every generation has its bugaboos, so to speak.
Yes.
Throughout history, there are things that have occurred that are like this. So, I mean, I don't think that we're seeing any kind of acceleration. You know, I don't think that we're seeing any kind of quickening towards the apocalypse going on right now. I think that you're just seeing the same kind of stuff that has happened to us, to humanity since the very beginning, since we first fell out of the trees. There have been weird things that have tormented us or messed with us. One of the aspects of all of these phenomena is that trickster element to it, that they play games with us, they mess with
Yeah.
us. They keep us thinking, they keep us aware that that there's a possibility that we're not alone in this reality. Forget about well, don't forget
Yes.
about, but, it's not just that the universe has a lot of planets and stars and things with the possibility of very good of intelligent life on other planets. There's other intelligent life here on Earth with us. Maybe not exactly in the same, if you want to go like old school. Uh, um, 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 Psychic phenomena type of things, maybe on a slightly different vibrational level. But the fact is that we're not alone, and these things
Mhm.
are with us and have the ability to interact with us. That's
Mhm.
one of the odd things is that most of the time we don't have the ability to go to wherever they come from, but they can come here and interact with us. So now, if you would consider physics and that we live in a three-dimensional reality, uh, if something lives in a fourth dimension is supposedly time, if you go beyond the even the fourth dimension, that they can interact with us because the first, second, and third dimensions are part of their reality as well. We can't go to theirs. Our concept of higher dimensions, we have no concept of.
Yes.
So that's why it's a lot easier for these things
Mhm.
to mess with us for whatever reasons. And in fact, one of the things that I notice a lot in some of these cases is that say somebody is looking out the window late at night and they see some kind of bizarre looking creature. And I'm basing this off of a story that somebody told me. I'll just go ahead and say it. They saw this creature coming down the road. They said that it was tall and kind of cream colored. It looked humanoid, but it really didn't have a lot of features to it, though they could see its eyes and kind of the semblance of her face. But they said that it moved and it was tall. They said it moved down the street like a cross country skier would move. All right. And as it got parallel to their house, this thing suddenly stopped, turned, and looked directly at the person who was looking at it. And they said the look on its face was, even though there wasn't a lot of features, they could still tell that this thing looked shocked. That
Wow.
and they supposed that it looked shocked that it was being seen, that somebody could see it. And I hear this a lot when people have these kind of experiences, that whatever it is that they're seeing a lot of times look surprised that they are being seen. So
Wow.
so if you're examining cases like this, look for that element because I see it a lot. Uh, uh, so, but again, Danielle, back to what with your original question. I think that this kind of activity happens all the time, but we don't hear about it most of the time because most people are reluctant to say anything about it. Yeah, with
Okay.
well, most people or a lot of people who aren't familiar with this kind of stuff, they don't watch your show or watch, the shows until or read the books about the type of
Yeah.
phenomena. When they have an experience like this, it's there's no way for them to compartmentalize it. Your everyday activities, you've got little file systems in your brain that you file it away. You get up in the morning, go to work, have coffee, come home, eat dinner, go to bed, do it all over again. That's all in that little filing system in your head. Okay, say one day you're going to work and a UFO lands in front of your car, little guys come out, collect rocks and plants, get back in, and fly away. Most people, it's just like, what the hell just happened to me? And will never, ever tell anybody about it because they think that they're crazy or they're afraid they're crazy.
Yes. Yes.
Or, that they'll be made fun of, which I guarantee they probably will be. All right. So we probably hear maybe, and I'm being maybe 5%, probably less than that, of all the experiences that people have, the weird experiences that people have. Most of the stuff we will never hear about it because people are afraid to talk about it. And that's one of the things that I kind of specialize in is getting these stories out of people that don't want to talk about it. They don't want the publicity. They're afraid to talk about it.
Yes.
Right? There's a lot. There's so much more than we'll ever realize simply because people are reluctant to talk about experiences.
Thank you for that explanation. Donnie, you've been quiet. I know you have a lot of knowledge and a lot of questions. Do you have any questions for our guest?
I was wondering when you were telling that story of the entity that looked shocked because I've heard that story. I've heard those accounts as well. I always wonder, okay, here's my theory on this, or something that I've thought about.
Mm-hmm.
What if it was in its time period, seeing the observer as a ghost from when they were alive?
Mm-hmm.
Ah.
Well, yeah. And they see something. They see, the human looking at it, and it's like, oh my God, it's a ghost or a cryptid or whatever. Oh yeah. I've come across several stories, ghostly stories, and Paul has one that he's written about himself, of similar circumstances.
Almost like a time slip.
Yeah, like it very much
Yeah.
so. I mean, this one story that I ran across, and I'm still trying to pin it down. Pin the exact sources of it. But it was a realtor. This woman was in the process of selling. It was an older house, kind of like a Victorian era house, and it was empty. And she walked into a room, and in this room was another woman and a girl about 10 years old talking to each other. And she was so shocked, because she knew the house was empty, that she kind of screamed. And when she did so, the two women disappeared. So she happened to know somebody who used to live in that house when they were younger, now grown. And she asked her, when you lived in this house, were there ghosts? Were there hauntings? This is something as a realtor I need to know. And her friend said, no, I don't remember anything like that. Well, then later, she got a call back from this person, and she said, I had completely forgotten about this, but my mother reminded me of the time that we were standing talking in the drawing room when you were about 10 years old, and this woman we didn't know walked in through the door and screamed at us and then disappeared.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's there. I've run across a number of cases, that where there seems to be almost like a time loop.
Like she screamed like she was like in shock, or was it like more of a threatening scream?
No, it was. Well, she said that that she screamed at us, and I imagine it was the scream of shock. Back to because she said that when she walked in and saw those two people in the room, that she's kind of like like anybody would. You're not expecting somebody to be in an empty house. It's shocking, and that's the way that that her friends, that now elderly mother, described it. But she just said this woman came in and screamed at us.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, I do think. I'm sorry, Danielle, but yeah, I
No, I
do
wanted to
think.
say great explanation.
You know, I,
Love it.
I,
Thank you.
I wish that I wish that I did have, an explanation for all of this. I mean, we have theories, we have hypotheses. Some people have belief systems that they have established, but
Yeah.
like I said before, I try to avoid belief systems because then that closes your mind to any new information that may come down the line. Um, because all the things that we are talking about now, all the possible explanations will probably be considered old fashioned and quaint, 100, 200 years from now. Same way that we look at some of the early parapsychologists from, say, like the 18th and 19th century who
Mhm.
talked about vibrations and electromagnetism as being possibly the source for these kinds of phenomena. So, I mean, the stuff that we talk about now probably has as much bearing on reality, explanation wise, as the people who were talking about, the ether and things like that. So keep your minds open, folks, because there's probably all kinds of different explanations out there that we haven't even been able to conceive of yet.
I agree. I thank you for the wonderful explanation. Still, you have more than we do, so we do love it. I'm going to pass the torch to two gentlemen, whatever they would like to ask.
All right, Donnie. If you,
You go ahead, Paul.
all right, cool. Okay. In fact, I got a few things. So pretend this is like a machine gun, and I'm pointing it at Tim
Mhm.
to ask him all these questions. Um, Ghosts, do they have a limited times lifespan? And your book actually explains it.
Well, I mean, it doesn't explain it. Again, it's there are a number of different hypotheses. Um, uh, Again, if we go back to my idea that possibly that ghosts that we think of as ghosts with hauntings aren't the actual souls of a person who has passed away, that our souls quickly ascend to wherever it is that we're supposed to go, after we die. It sheds, though, uh, uh, portions of our personality, our egos, things like that, that are suited more for the material world, for living.
Mhm.
So, that's what remains behind for a limited amount of time. I suggest that after a certain amount of time, the energy just runs out and dissipates. Energy can't be created or destroyed, but it can,
Yeah.
Yeah.
fade away and return back to the environment, unless unless it manages to um, leech energy off of the living,
And
which is, again, go ahead, Paul. Can I
oh,
ask
I'm
something?
sorry, Chad. This just popped in my head. Also, too, like when I was stationed over in Germany, some of the castles, okay, like the this one castle, they said there was a lady in green, and then they said after years, it was a lighter green,
Hmm.
and then finally, it was white.
Right.
So almost like the energy was depleting.
Hmm.
Yeah, bright green, less green, white.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if unless there are ways that these fragmented minds can get additional energy to rev back up again. Say that they have positioned themselves, because I think a lot of times that these things if they don't remain with their bodies in the cemeteries, which surprised me. Okay, I had always considered that cemeteries would probably be the least haunted places, because uh, 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 you think about it, a spirit is going to go and hang out places that it loved in life. All right.
Right.
Uh, but a lot of these belief systems suggest that the fragmented minds tend to stick with their bodies, and then kind of go back to they're they're like shadows of our breath that
Yeah.
they slowly just dissipate back into the environment, and cemeteries do tend to be rather haunted at times. Um, but I think that also we don't see a lot of ghosts from earlier time periods, not only because they've lost their energy and dissipated, but unless they're situated in, say, like a castle or a house that's been around for a long time, the layers of earth have built up over the years, so that if you were a ghost, say, that lived in Roman times and are still wandering around, you're wandering around underground. There is a very famous case that happened in London, where I think it was London, but where a gentleman was digging for pipes in the basement of a building, and he had a trench in this basement, and all of a sudden he saw Roman troops coming through this trench, and they would come in through one side of the trench and exit out of the other. And they didn't pay any attention to him. It was almost, he said, like a projection that of this line of Roman troops. They looked kind of like sad and dirty and bedraggled, and were slowly marching. All right. So, what if we don't see these older ghosts because they're now underground? That's because uh, the ground levels tend to build up over time, and the past is buried. So, on these rare occasions that energy is still available, and these things are able to manifest themselves naturally, like the guy who had who had dug this trench. Most of the time, we don't see these things. So, and did I answer your question there, Paul? I kind of
Yeah, you
got
did. You did.
off into a tangent.
No, Tim, you absolutely did. Thank you
We
so
love
much.
to listen. It's okay. We love to listen. You can talk. We are here to listen.
And Tim, you also to collaborate with Sean on an article, Ghost Hunting, the High and the Low.
Yeah, that's well, you can't have a book like this without getting into the whole modern ghost hunting thing. Now, ghost hunting is not anything recent. People have been ghost hunting, you know, for centuries in one form or the other. But now we're seeing this uptick in technology and the use of technology in an attempt to help further confirm people's suspicions about a ghost, and face it. I mean, you go ghost hunting because you are trying to confirm one way or the other on the possibility of life after death. All right. That's
Correct.
really what it all boils down to, and a lot of ghost hunters, I think, are kind of loath to admit that, but that's really what everybody is seeking. They're seeking proof that we don't just disappear when we die, that we don't just close our eyes and it's blackness and that's it. All right.
Mhm.
And the use now of technology to try to better hone in onto this phenomena is something that yeah, I'm rather ambivalent about it myself, but I mean it's inevitable that you're going to use technology in order to further pursue uh, uh, all of this. But I think that yeah, and what I warn people about is don't become dependent on it. Okay,
Yeah.
uh, technology can fail you. You know it's better. Technology is fine. Use it. Have your cameras. I've taken video cameras and things like that on my investigations, but don't let it consume you to the point that you ignore your own feelings, your own perceptions. Uh, a lot of ghost hunters now tend to want to steer away bringing somebody who may have psychic abilities, you know,
Hmm.
uh, to these hunts. It's almost like, well, we don't believe in that kind of stuff, but I'm convinced that this REM pod can pick up a ghost if it comes too close to it. And it's like, both could probably work. Don't eliminate one in favor of the other. If you have somebody who thinks they're psychic and can perceive, spirits, bring them along. Or, bring your equipment along as well. Don't just don't just think one is superior than the other. I think everything has its place, and that you should utilize them, but just don't become dependent on one or the other completely.
And Tim, I use like psychic mediums as a tool. So if they say, "Hey, there's a ghost in the corner," well, prove it. Let me get the investigators over there, take some pictures, try to get some EVPs to prove that there's actually a ghost in that corner.
Yes.
I just don't. Yeah, I don't just take their word for it and say, "Oh, there's a ghost in the corner." Oh, okay. You know,
Right.
and I and I and I've seen some ghost hunters actually do that, where the medium will go, "Oh, there's a ghost in the corner sitting down on the chair," and the lead investigators go, "Oh, okay," and just believes what she's saying. I want more. I need proof. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, all of this I think has its place. Just uh, don't become dependent on one or the other, and don't be afraid to try new things as well. The whole what is it? The Estes, I think it's called the Estes method, where somebody will wear headphones and
Oh yeah,
so they
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
can't they can't
No
they're
white noise.
noise canceling headphones where they can't hear anything except
Yeah.
for the like a spirit box or something like that,
Hmm.
and then
Hmm.
people will ask questions that the person wearing the headphones can't hear, and then they will speak out loud whatever they're hearing, from the spirit box on their headphones. I think that's an interesting method because I mean that eliminates that bias. If you hear somebody ask a question, and then you hear a voice come over the spirit box, you may be biased with trying to find that voice responding to whatever the question's asked. You don't hear what the question's being asked. There's no bias there. You're just saying what you think you hear. It's a great method.
Hey, Tim, who's the corn-fed
Wow, that's a good one.
ghost huntress?
Well, that's a friend of ours by the name of Jill Heinen, and
Hmm.
she actually, I ran across her. I got her as a guest on the old show that I used to do
Paracast.
with Beckley. No, no, not Paracast, with Exploring the Bizarre.
Oh,
With Green Beckley, he was looking for women ghost hunters. All right, because he had observed that for a long time the field had been dominated by men, and now there were more and more women getting involved. So he wanted to do a show with he wanted uh, with women, why they got into it, that sort of thing. Jill was one of these people, and so I've kept in communication with her, and so I thought that she would be a very good source because she's rather unassuming. She doesn't have any. She doesn't have any like pet overall overarching theories on what's going on. So I thought that she would just be a perfect candidate for a write up, in our book, and she was. I mean, just a wonderful person and a perfect example of the types of people who are out there now trying to get a bead on, trying to get a lead on what's going on.
Well, if I can add something, please, gentlemen, I have to or I will explode. So the truth what is, lots of times this world of, if we can say, even astrophysics, paranormal, astrology, and the list goes on, it's really dominated by men. And what I'm saying is great, but there's very little ladies, I think, that do have guts to come out of their shells. So I admire the lady that, she did that. A lot of times people ask me, how come, Daniel, do you feel talking to all of these men? And, I go like, I really feel great. And I feel very comfortable. I feel like I'm inside of the field that I enjoy, that I study and I experience. So I think that, some of the women at the ancient time, they were actually more connected to the stars, to the moon. They were goddesses themselves, they were follower of the Christ too. And they were trying to spread the religion, the faith, or, whatever. Many of them were, the right hands of the top leaders at that time. But of course, as the, time did passes on, they did get erased. So this is something, Tim, that I'm going to favor inside of your new book. And I'm going to look forward to invite the lady to be our guest. I think it's going to be fantastic. This is just like a icing on a cake for me. So I want to say thank you for that.
My pleasure. And I should say that in my past investigations, that really some of my favorite psychics that I have brought along, on my investigations have all been women. They I've had some men psychics as well. Naturally, I mean, it goes both ways across all the genders. But the ones that I think that have really stood out for me have all been women. So I don't know.
Thank you for that. And thank you for all of the ladies.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. If women just tend to have a more of a natural openness to these kinds of abilities. I think that a lot of men who do have psychic abilities, especially when they're young, they have a tendency to have it, kind of crushed out of them because of the various expectations for men and for boys of how they should be, growing up, developing, and a lot of women, they don't have that happening to them like a lot of men. So I think that they tend to be a little bit more open, about what's going on with their abilities and how that they are able to bring them in play.
Oh, thank you. Any more questions, gentlemen? Paul or Donnie?
I got a little few things. Do we still have enough time?
Yeah.
Go
ahead,
my
Paul.
friend.
Okay.
We have about 11 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then let me kind of run down a few things, and then Tim can just kind of break in anytime. But
Okay.
in this book here,
Okay.
in this book right here, you're going to find something about the jinn. The jinn was created
Mhm.
by smokeless fire. So you'll also too. Sean has a little piece in there. Sean Castile.
John Castile.
Yes. And he talks about the restless spirit of Marilyn Monroe. And that's kind of interesting because Marilyn Monroe, her ghost is actually seen in a lot of different places. Like when I was
Yes.
with the California Department Office of Emergency Services, and I was working down in Los Angeles for the Northridge earthquake, I was told by different people that they saw the spirit of Marilyn Monroe here at this hotel. She was seen over here and seen over here. I go, what? They go, yeah, yeah. Her ghost is seen in a lot of places. So that's kind of interesting. Um, there's stuff on there about Spring Heel Jack. That's one of my favorite subjects. If you don't know who it is, read about it. It'll blow you away. Um, uh, Apparitions of the past and future, something that Tim placed in the book, is really interesting.
Mhm.
Phantasm fire starters. Um, that's very interesting by Tim, and this has got me excited too. Blue flames and the fire elemental. Well, that almost sounds like spontaneous human combustion because there was this one individual who actually survived the spontaneous human combustion and he was breaking out in blue flames and he was putting it out like in his arm and stuff like that.
Wow.
So blue flames has a connection to a lot of strange stuff. Um, Tim also too talks about hydrological haints, which is very, very
Mhm.
interesting. Um, um, Tim,
Yeah, I'll tell you an interesting story here, real quick. The book was reviewed by a British reviewer recently,
Mhm.
and um, he he was not familiar with the word hate.
I'm
H-A-I.
familiar with it. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's it's an old, especially Southern dialect term for haunts. It's just they call them haints, but it means the same thing as hate. And he thought at first that it was a misspelling, and and he was and he was going to make a notation of that. He was like, this crappy book, it's they can't even spell haunts right. But then he looked it up. He actually, thank you, took the time to look it up and realize that it was an old kind of an old fashioned word for haunts, and I just used it because I thought it worked well with the word
Mhm.
hydrological hates,
I
which
like that. I like
yeah,
that.
yeah, which is uh, basically water poltergeist. And I have different chapters that examine. I have the stone throwers. I have the fire
Mhm.
poltergeist and the water poltergeist. And
The fragmented ghost.
fragmented ghost, right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah,
And
that's kind of the fragmented mind and it's kind of um, the accumulation of all of the chapters as the final chapter, which kind of like bringing in everything that all of our other writers, yourself included, Paul, and their ideas into a kind of an overarching hypothesis on the possible nature of ghost spirits and hauntings. Which I mean, and I say throughout the book that the paranormal phenomena is so vast that there are probably a number of different types of explanations depending on what you're dealing with. So you really can't go and pigeonhole, say like poltergeist who throw rocks. Put them in this
Mhm.
way. That's one of the things that the human mind loves to do is to categorize things, and it's just like a natural instinct with us that everything has to be categorized. Ghosts, spirits, poltergeists, demons. They all have their different categories, and one of the things that I emphasize in this book is that you can't categorize any of this because it all just bleeds together back and forth, and it's almost impossible for our meager little minds to try to separate and find the boundary line between all of it. I don't think there is a boundary line. It just all kinds of blurs together at a certain point.
Oh, and I just want to mention when we were talking about the Black Eyed Kids, one of the things that I did is when I went into the lady's house, one thing I always gravitate towards is their bookshelf and look at the books that they read. And I noticed that she had two Nick Redfern books. And I know Nick Redfern, he's published a couple of my articles.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Redfern talks about Black Eyed Kids. So I'm wondering if she got the idea from a Nick Redfern book. So I always do that. I always look at people's bookshelves, what they read and stuff like that, see what they're influenced on. And I think that's what she may have even created her own tulpa. She believed in it so much, the Black Eyed Kids, that she created the tulpa of those two little boys. Just my thoughts on it. Cemeteries. Why are cemeteries really not that haunted, that don't have that ghost? Because they're not familiar with the cemetery. We did get one, like there's one cemetery they said it was really haunted. And I was asking the ghost, I said, why are you here at this cemetery? And the EVP that I got was my daughter. We found her daughter, who was 3 years old, buried at the cemetery. So when she was living, she was visiting her daughter's grave. And that's the reason why she was at the cemetery.
Yeah.
I'm ordering the book now, Tim. I'm sorry to cut you off. So I'm ordering the book now. You guys, you can find it on Amazon. I'm so interested. So that's why I was like, let me go poke it in. So thank you. I'm excited. So it's quite, I'm looking at the way it looks on the Amazon. You guys can see it. So that's where it's going. I'm adding to my cart, to the cart. Okay. Purchased. Have it.
There you go. Well,
yes,
and please make sure that after you read it that you leave a review. It doesn't. If you didn't like the book, then say that. But reviews on Amazon are very important, I think. And as long as you read the book and give an honest review, that's what I appreciate.
And I love some of the photos in here.
I will take a picture and recommend it to everybody. I have over, I think, 2,000 people on Facebook and more. So I'm going to recommend it to everybody there. I'm going to give my honest opinion, but I'm sure I'm going to enjoy every detail in it.
Well, and Danielle, I wanted to tell you that I didn't have. You were looking for a copy of Lost Journals of Nikola Tesla, and I couldn't find one. I found one, and so I am autographing that, and I am mailing that to you. So
this is gonna be something that I will cherish with my heart. Honestly, It's like a Christmas all over again. Thank you, sir. I'm so happy.
My pleasure. Paul, I want to tell you.
We have about a minute left.
Okay.
Before I let you go, let's see. Yes.
What are you going to say, Tim? What are you going to say?
It's going to be too long. If we only have a minute left, then
Oh, okay.
No, go a little bit. It's fine. You please go ahead. We won't cut you off. Please finish.
Okay, go ahead, Tim.
You're good.
Okay, well, I was just going to say you were talking about the cemetery ghost. I was in a situation where I was with a psychic in a cemetery, and this was before the Estes method, of course. So she heard what I said, but I said out loud, "Why are you still here?" And she replied back to me what she heard. I don't know where else to go.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow.
That's which again, that kind of goes to the idea that I've been kicking around that these are fragmented minds that are left behind, kind of like you cut your hair, you leave your hair behind, you don't think anything about it. Same way with our consciousness. There are parts of our consciousness that are meant just to be left behind, and you can feel bad about it, but that's just the way it is.
Hmm.
And it just that I think is the source for a lot of what we would call ghosts and hauntings until that energy dissipates.
wow.
Thank you, Tim. That explains it all. And I just want to answer one question I see in the chat line here. They were asking why Donnie Cho was freezing up. Donnie Cho wasn't freezing up. He's part of the Matrix, and the Matrix actually makes him stop and freeze like that. So
Yeah, I just sit very still.
He
oh,
he has really good trained nerves, while rest of us
yeah. How does he do that?
itch and move and make twitches and grab something.
Yeah,
I,
I
Oh,
credit
yeah,
my
the
yeah.
years of Buddhist
Gangnam style,
meditations.
Korean
You got
Gangnam
it.
style.
Tim's now in the
Great.
Matrix. Oh,
And what I
Now
was
Tim is
saying
really
oh, oh, what a good show! What a good show! Thank you,
it is
Tim.
amazing show. We had so many viewers and had people on the Instagram. I'm gonna connect also next time to the Facebook. Finally, the computer, everything is working. Didn't you notice, you guys? It was working perfectly. And I
Yeah, it
had,
was
if
perfect.
I didn't have a phone and a headset, I think it would just go crazy or entire show. This time was behaving because I was prepared. But what I wanted to say, this was an amazing show, Mr. Tim. Whenever you have time, whenever you would like to share your wisdom, your knowledge, your research, your writings as an author are, really admired by many, including myself and both of my colleagues here. Please do welcome and, feel welcome to come and share your story with us. Any closing words from Mr. Donnie and Mr. Paul?
So I wish we could have talked about some ghost animals. I find that really fascinating too. Oh, and Tim, it was
True,
so
true,
great having
true.
you here talking about your book. There's so much great stuff that you
Hmm.
threw out there. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. This
oh
is
my yeah, my
yeah, it's a
pleasure.
privilege.
Yeah. I always have a great time talking with you all, and anytime you want me back, I'm at your disposal.
Oh, beautiful. Again, thank you everybody for joining us here. Tea time with Duchess. I'm going to share now, drop my little bomb. So I did submit last night at 2:30 a.m. My script to Amazon. So I'm waiting for them to go through it and let me back when will be published. So I'm quite excited. And also to every Greek Orthodox person out there, an Orthodox and brother, Christian and sister, I want to congratulate and wish a happy St. George Day, and even to everybody in UK, because St. George is a big protector for entire United Kingdom, where also one of my background is coming from. I wish you all blessed, wonderful evening. God bless you all on upcoming St. George, what is on Wednesday. Have a wonderful day, and Mr. Tim, we will call you soon. So please please keep your lines open because 3 of us will be like, oh, Tim. Thank you again, sir. And I'm looking forward to read your book. It will be my pleasure to enjoy every second of it.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you,
All right,
everybody.
good night, everyone.
God bless you all
Everybody.
in the chat. We'll see you next
All right.
Monday. God bless everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Born from shadow, sealed in truth, ancient blood, but faith rooted proof.